They are the parents who simply won't let go. For Kate and Jerry McCann, the nightmare began 4 years ago. On a family holiday in Portugal, they made a decision they will regret for the rest of their lives. They left their children in their apartment while they ate dinner just a few metres away. They checked them regularly, but later that evening, the horrifying discovery. Little Madeline, nearly 4, was missing. Not a sign, not a clue. In the ensuing investigation, the couple, both doctors, found themselves listed as suspects. The Portuguese investigation came up with nothing, but for the last 4 years, Kate and Jerry McCann have done everything they can to keep Madeline's case in the public eye. Now, Kate has written a very frank, very raw book simply titled Madeline. Kate and Jerry McCann join me now live from our London studio. Look, tell us, this happened overnight your time, this development with the British Prime Minister. What hope does that give you?
Well, it's definitely a positive step, Mark. The Prime Minister has intervened and he's committed the Metropolitan Police to review all of the files that they have available to them. So we are pleased because this is one of our major concerns, is that no one in law enforcement has been looking for Madeline, and there's a huge amount of information there and it hasn't been looked over with a fine-tooth comb. So from our point of view, we were calling on the government to do more, and this morning in UK, we're more reassured now that our government are pulling the stops out and trying to aid the search for Madeline, and that has been lacking the last 2.5 years. Because,
Kate, in your book, you were scathing about the Portuguese investigators. They did you and Madeline a disservice.
Well, certainly what happened in August, September 2007, Mark, I just found very hard to accept, really. And the hardest thing for us was knowing that nobody was looking for Madeline at that point. If the police were concentrating on us, then they weren't looking for our daughter and the person who took her. And that's what upset me the most.
The police did concentrate on you. Can I ask you both, to be accused of involvement in your own child's disappearance, there can't be anything worse for a parent?
Well, I think the worst thing for us was Madeline's abduction. That really was the most terrifying experience I think a parent can experience. The point where things became awful was when lies and misinformation and smears were given to the media portraying that Madeline was dead, and there was evidence to incriminate us. Which is just completely unacceptable. And I have to say, at that point, at the end of August, beginning of September 2007, I did think our whole family could be destroyed. And thankfully, with the support we've had from friends, family, the general public, from around the world, and we've got good friends in New Zealand as well, that's managed to get us through it.
Kate, in the book, you talk about the fact at the time that it happened, you appeared, and you admit this, you appeared cold and detached. Do you think that added to the suspicions people had that you were involved?
Possibly. I mean, I think I've learnt a lot about human nature over the last 4 years, and how people, and myself included, pre-2007, are ready to judge people by the way they look. And you know, who's to say how a mother should react when the child's abducted? What you see on camera, Mark, is very different to what goes on behind closed doors. And I know how much I was suffering, how much Jerry was suffering, and all that was witnessed by our friends and family.
You know,
there were times when sorry, I was just going to say, there were times when we were obviously in public and doing appeals for Madeline, and we knew at that point we had a job to do. We had to do that for Madeline, and it was really important that we delivered that message. So sometimes you just have to reel yourself in and do it for your child, and then, you know, inevitably the emotion comes after.
The blame game and the finger pointing, it continues. I mean, even on our website when you were coming on, people are writing in and they asked the question you must have been asked 1 million times: how could you have left your child alone in an apartment?
Well, the most important thing is that we didn't even perceive any risk there, Mark. We're very responsible parents, and we felt incredibly safe. And I don't know if you know Praia da Luz well, but it really is a very family-orientated resort. It was off-season, it was very quiet, and there was nothing to make us feel suspicious. And I've said this before, for us it was a bit like, we were so close, it was a bit like dining in your garden and going back to check the children weren't crying. And I think the difficulty we've had with this is we've expressed our remorse and, of course, the guilt that we feel about this. But the key thing is the person responsible for the crime is still at large. And at the minute, they're faceless and blameless. And what we need to do is find Madeleine and bring those responsible for her abduction to justice.
If we could turn the clock back, Mark, and change that decision, obviously we would, obviously we would, but all we can do now really is absolutely everything in our power to find Madeleine, and, I do believe we've done that.
You both believe that Madeleine is still alive?
Certainly, as parents, that what we are certain about is that there's no evidence that Madeleine has come to physical harm, and I'm sure every parent could understand that you're not going to accept that your child's dead without concrete proof. And the other thing that has come into public consciousness is these high-profile cases where children have been taken and kept for many years. And the experience from the United States is that the younger the child, the more likely they've been taken to be kept. So there are a lot of logical reasons for us to believe that Madeleine's still alive. And I think everyone can understand that we can't give up, even though at times the search and everything that we do, and Kate writing the book, it is exhausting.
Kate, I mean, someone like, say, J.C. Dugard, when she is found, how do you react when you see that story?
I was actually in Liverpool at my mum and dad's at the time when the news broke, and my initial reaction as I heard the story was how tragic, basically, that her childhood had been taken away from her, and her family had been without her for so long. 18 years is just, I can't think about it, but I couldn't think 4 years ago, when Madeleine was taken. But actually, as the story unfolded, I thought, well, this is positive, because if you ask JC or a family, are you happy about that? Of course they're joyous that they found her and they can rebuild a future for her and for all the family. So it was definitely a positive, and I think it also demonstrated, to the general public that children can disappear off the radar for long periods of time and turn up after being in a situation which nobody would have believed. I think we're all too ready to write off people that go missing, and cases like this demonstrate that we just can't give up. We need to keep looking.
What is remarkable, and you talk about this in your book, is that your relationship survived, because in just about every case where something as traumatic as this has happened, the marriage has not survived.
I mean, that's right. I mean, we're lucky because I think we had a very strong base to our relationship beforehand. And as Jerry's mentioned, we've had incredible support, and you can't underestimate that. The reason why I spoke about it in my book is, I wanted my book to be real and as honest as possible, and it would be unrealistic, not to talk about things which obviously are a direct result of, something as tragic as this. It inevitably impacts on all aspects of your life, and that includes our marriage, our relationship as well.
Jerry, Kate talked about you reacted to it in different ways, and that in some ways that you were able to get back on with life ostensibly a little bit earlier. Does that cause strain between you?
It did. I think our immediate reactions were the same. It was just that something kicked in me much quicker. Within days, in fact, even on the first night when I did the appeal, there was something saying to me, we need to be doing something, trying to take control, because when your child's taken from you, you feel completely and utterly helpless. And I suppose it was almost therapeutic for me when we started the campaign proper. I felt I was doing something that would help the search, and that helped me recover. And along the lines, we've recovered a long way, and you can see now we're more or less at the same place. But there were times when I thought, would Kate ever get back to near normal, and that was hard. But I think good communication is really, really important, and we had a lot of help from a counsellor who was brilliant, who specialises in crisis psychology, essentially. And it had an amazing effect on both of us. I can't speak highly enough for the benefit of it, actually.
You both have strong Christian beliefs. I mean, you were even comforted by the Pope. Does it make you doubt your belief in God?
There's certainly been times, Mark, in the last 4 years when I have doubted God and I've got angry. And I think 2008 was probably my most wobbly period, I guess. I've said in my book, I've never blamed God for what has happened to Madeleine. The abductor is responsible for that. But it just seemed there was an awful lot of injustice that seemed to be dumped at our door, really, in the last 4 years. And I think it got to a point where I just didn't think I could handle anymore, and I couldn't understand why one family had to suffer so much. And it was those times, really, that I kind of found myself saying to God, what is going on? I mean, if you're there, surely you wouldn't allow this to happen. And, I think that's understandable, really. But I'm still hanging in there, my faith's still there. And, we've been surrounded by so much goodness. I mean, I can't speak enough about it, to be honest. It's really shown that the vast majority of the human race are just really good and kind people.
There's still the other lot.
There's been so many people pray.
I was going to say, Jerry, that there is the other ones, though. Do people ever just come up to you and accuse you to your face?
That's never happened, I have to say, ever. And the vast majority of people are incredibly supportive. And even when we were made arguido, even when the headlines were at their worst, and when we first came back to the UK, we were getting hundreds of letters a day that were supportive, and only a few that were nasty. And that's continued. And I think what we need to be absolutely clear about is the number of people who are on the internet who conduct hate campaigns are very small, and I would like to see those people have their life scrutinised the way that ours has been.
Mark, the nasty people are really in the minority, and these are the people that hide behind the computer screens and send the anonymous letters. But as Jerry said, we'd like to know who these people are, really. Your
lives have to carry on. You have 2 other beautiful children. How do you carry on? How do you make life normal for them when you're still grieving for Maddie?
I mean, I think our life has normalised now. I mean, it's a different norm, I guess. Jerry's obviously full-time at work in the hospital. My job essentially has changed. I haven't gone back to medicine. I'm working full-time, really, on the campaign to find Madeleine. The last 9 months I've been writing my book. And it's probably the hardest job I've done, to be honest, in my life. But for Sean and Emily, they're like other children. They go to school, they go to birthday parties, swimming lessons. We have family time together. Yeah. And they've learnt to accept. I mean, children are very resilient, and this is their normal life. That they know the big sister's missing. They know that she's been taken, and that's wrong. But they know that we're trying really hard, along with lots of people in the general public, to try and find her.
Look, I think that is really important.
I know
that life for Sean and Emily's life is normal. They're incredibly happy children. They give us tremendous joy as well.
Look, I know the proceeds from this book you're putting into continuing the work, continuing the search for Maddie. This is going to carry on. Before we go, do you have if anyone is watching, by any coincidence, can do anything, what do you want them to do?
I think the thing we would like people to do is visit our website at findmadeleine.com. On there are images of Madeleine, age progression images, and we would like you to distribute them to your contacts, put them on your social media pages, join our Find Madeleine Facebook page, and just keep that awareness of Madeleine being missing out there, because we have no idea where she is, and we don't know who it is that's going to see her and recognise her. So that would help the search.
Jerry and Kate McCann, look, we wish you well in the search for Maddie, and look, thank you so much for joining us here on Close Up tonight.
Thank you very much, Mark.